Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Tales from a Professional Nerd. My name is Brian C.P. Steele, and I will be your nerd today. And every day you watch my show. So, it's been kind of a crazy week. Ups and downs, lefts and rights. But overall, I would say it has been a positive week. We've had some issues with Natalie's illness that has kind of reared their ugly head, but in so doing, it's revealed to us that there's possibly some really cool job opportunities out there for someone who is effectively not homebound, but can't be reliant to leave at any particular moment. So it's kind of cool finding some of these opportunities, and hopefully they'll pan out, and Natalie will be able to start doing some kind of interesting things from home on the days where she is not feeling well enough to get out and about. So generally speaking, the day in the life of Brian, or rather the week in the life of Brian, it's been a lot of work. I've been doing a lot of commission painting, getting geared up and ready to start work proper on the first big Crafty Games project. I just got the new Q1 catalog and price sheet for Big Child Creatives. So if you are a store owner or a retailer or something along those lines that would like to see that information, hit me up in the comments or hit me up on Facebook or by email. But I should be able to start sending that information out and about very soon, wheeling and dealing and the like. I know this year is going to be big for Big Child, for the sheer fact that we are really going to try and reach out and get out of our comfort zone. They've been, for the last couple of years, have been very happy just kind of making minis for other companies and just sort of, occasionally selling their own stuff. And I think this year's going to be, you're going to see a pretty healthy push toward Big Child Creatives being their own entity and their own umbrella from under which they will, release cool products and things. So, big plus there. I have gotten one step closer to being able to talk about a miniature license job. Still waiting on the contract to come through and the ink to be dry and whatnot. But it is super exciting, and when I'm allowed to say more, I will. You guarantee it. I guarantee that you're gonna hear me crowing like Peter Pan. Had a really interesting text message back and forth with an industry friend of mine earlier this week. It might turn out to be some more design opportunities. We'll see how that goes. As with anything in the industry, until it's actually in your hands or in ink in front of you, who knows if it's real. But if it is real and the opportunity is there, it could be very, very cool to be able to stretch my wings and learn to fly. That was weird. I don't know why I did that. But yeah, I've been doing a lot of commission painting, inserting the occasional model for myself to break up the monotony. But I recently did a short order of Kingdom Death minis for a client in Southern Indiana, a longtime friend of mine as well. And his game shop apparently was really ecstatic about the paint jobs, and so he went ahead and ordered some more. So I have been working on right now. Let's see, the ones I finished was the Watcher and the Butcher. Those were the first wave that we got done, and I've actually got a decent picture of the Butcher and we can, if I can figure out how to put it in there, I'll put it in there right now. So the those two models, the Watcher and the Butcher, they gave me gave me, basically opened the window for me to do the next two models for the same client. One is the like Rising Phoenix or the Twilight Phoenix or something. Basically, it's a giant scary monster chicken that also has like hands coming out of between the feathers and out of its butthole, and it's a weird model. Adam Poots does very weird models. Kingdom Death is a strange game. I've never really grasped it, but the models are very well conceptualized. They go together well. They're very highly detailed, and I'm looking forward to the painting, even if I don't necessarily understand or get behind some of the aesthetic. The painting itself should be a lot of fun. So that Phoenix thing, and then the Gold Smoke Knight, which is a great kit. He's like an ogre sized guy in armor with a big old like stylized hammer that is like out of the joints and from around his neck. He's got like this smoke coming out of him. So that's pretty cool. So I'm gonna work on those here pretty soon. Always working on steady commissions. I got a little more work on my own Star Wars Legion stuff. So my battle droids are ready to go to have new models added to them, to their ranks by the end of the month, hopefully, if Fantasy Flight is correct on their shipping dates. But also I managed to get, and this kind of goes hand in hand with today's topic, I managed to get one more of my classic Transformers done. Megatron. I got you, Prime. Again, working toward my eventual goal of being able to record my Transformers miniatures game, and hopefully get the okay to create it on a mass scale. But then also one of the other commissions that I've been doing, so you guys have heard me talk about Dust 1947 quite a bit. I almost just said 1984. And I've always enjoyed their models and enjoyed the game since we started playing. But one of the things that they introduced that got our attention is they introduced the Mythos faction, the Cthulhu faction. And one of my clients and very, very close friends needs all of his army painted for Adepticon, which is coming up right around the corner. And so I've been working on his stuff, and there's cultists and that sort of thing, but there's also a couple of big Gribblies, and I just finished the smaller of the big Gribblies. This is the not the Avatar Cthulhu. The Avatar Cthulhu is the big one. This is the spawn of Cthulhu. So he's a hefty model. He super well goes together real well. As far as he's got no good stress points. You don't have to worry about him breaking. And as you can tell, I enjoyed making him that kind of a creepy seafoam green. So we can have him eat the camera. Chomp. So so weird. I actually got to use I don't know if you're probably not gonna be able to see it on that camera, but in the depth of the mouth. Oh, can I get it to focus on it? In the depth of the mouth right there, and on the eyes themselves. Come on, look at the camera. Look at the camera, Cthulhu friend. I got to use Stuart Semple's Blackest Black 3, because I felt that like this maw of oblivion and these soulless black eyes staring at you from the void would make the most sense, and so I got to use the Blackest Black pigment, which is Just so cool. I don't think I could ever paint like an entire model in it, but I love using it for like if a model's base has like a manhole cover and it's supposed to go down further than it is, do the inside in the blackest black. That watcher that I did for the client has a hood, like kind of a cowl that has no face. It's just an empty area in it. So I blackest black the inside of it, so it is just like a void. It's awesome. I'm very, very happy with how that stuff works. Now it is, despite it being technically an acrylic paint, it is very hard to work with because it is as thick as paste, and if it doesn't have something to adhere to, it'll smear all over the place. You might need a couple of different coats to make sure that you get it all covered. Otherwise, you're going to lose that blackest black effect. But I've gotten used to it, and I'm very happy with anything that I use it on. So yeah, there's those guys, and a couple of just classic monsters. Which is why I referred to the name of today's episode is making the classics work for you. Also, I should not, I can't forget to do a quick shout out to our sponsor, Armor Class 10, kind of gamer apparel. They supply my t-shirts for the show. And today, which goes hand in hand with the whole classic element of today, we got a little Run D&D. You know, like the old classic hip-hop band or hip-hop group Run DMC, except Run D&D. You get it. You know how it is. Hopefully you get it. You're not like, you know, super young and be like, who's that? If you need that, then what you need to do is go to YouTube right now, pause my video, because you're on YouTube. Pause my video, go into the search bar, say Run DMC, and like Tricky or Mary Mary, put those in the search bar, and then just sit back and be like, what? And just, your mind will be blown. Because they were amazing. They were one of the first bands, music groups that I ever bought like a cassette tape for. They are a true classic for me, which is why this shirt ties in to today's topic for me, because it is talking about the classics, whether it's movies or games or elements or music or whatever. So yeah, speaking of Armor Class 10, I don't want to forget to give this information out to you. I'll put it in the description of the video as well. But because of our ongoing relationship with Armor Class 10 and how amazing they are and amazing their products are, to help bolster their sales and the relationship that we have from Tales from a Professional Nerd and Armor Class 10, they have created a special, unique discount code if you go and order t-shirts or hoodies or whatever from them because you heard about them from me. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to, all right, here we go, drum roll. I'm going to put the code, which you will put in when you go to check out, it'll be like, do you have any, coupon codes or anything? That's what you'll do. You will put in these 5 letters. TFAPN. Tales from a Professional Nerd. You put in TPAFN and TPAFN. I have an anagram. TPAFN. So you put that in the discount code and you get 10% off your purchase, which I implore you to do. I'm sure my sponsors would be very happy to see that they're selling t-shirts because I'm telling you to come and go visit their fine establishment. So yeah, there we go. There's that. Let's see what else. I think The big thing for me is I am getting ready to run another session of my family role playing game, my family D&D game this weekend, and this is their first. It's going to be like their first kind of tough encounter. They've had a couple of encounters where they may have had a hard time dealing with monsters that got back up, or their arrows that were missing or whatever. But this is the first time they're probably going to run into it. This is definitely the first time they've had someone that can cast spells. And we'll see how this goes, because this is the first step towards the actual plot of their little family campaign. So that should be a lot of fun. I'm super excited about that. I always love running for the family, but knowing this session is going to be kind of action packed and it's kind of thrill filled, hopefully it will go over well with my wonderful 11-year-olds and my wife and brother from another mother, the godfather to my son. But yeah, so I guess that's pretty much the week in Brian. Nothing else really standing out. I know I wanted to play some miniatures games this last weekend. It just didn't pan out. Didn't have a chance. I wanted to play some Dust. I wanted to play even some Fallout, Wasteland Warfare, and it just didn't come together. Was too busy doing stuff. But that is how the cookie crumbles. Crookie? Oof. That's what I get for using old-timey sayings like cookie crumbles. Oh, boy. But overall, it was a good week. Stressful. Hoping that some of these balls that are in the air waiting for them to drop, and hopefully when they drop, they'll have little dollar signs attached to them, or just maybe the creative elements that I require to function as a game developer, designer, writer, author, general professional nerd. But yeah, so that brings us to the topic of the week, and that is making the classics work for you. That is kind of an open-ended statement. If you take a look at the thumbnail that I put up to kind of bring you into this episode, I was holding some classic game books. I was holding the revised edition of the Star Wars role-playing game, easily my favorite of the role-playing games for Star Wars currently. I know it's super way out of print, but it is. I honestly, and that includes West End games. I know there's a lot of fans out there that love the West End game stuff. It was not. I find it inferior to the 3.5 revised Star Wars. There might be a handful of people that are really kind of flag waving for the Fantasy Flight Saga edition or whatever, the one that had all the dice symbols and whatnot and card packs for character classes or whatever. And while I'm glad that people were enjoying it, it was not for me. I did not enjoy the dice mechanic. I did not enjoy all of the little add-ons in order to be able to run a complete campaign. And I say complete as in having all the assets that you need. It wasn't for me. And now that Fantasy Flight has canceled and dissolved their entire role-playing game division, you won't see a whole lot more of that coming out. Also in that stack of thumbnail books, I had my old Spelljammer book, which in and of itself is a classic. Because it comes out of old Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. Before we got into 3 and 3.5 and Pathfinder and all that stuff, there was the old AD&D books, and one of those worlds was Spelljammer. And when I was in high school, I hated the idea of Spelljammer. I was like, this is so dumb. Why are we in space and fighting orcs? This is so dumb. Now that I've had a chance to kind of separate myself from I'm too cool, Spelljammer's really awesome. And it has a lot of really cool stuff in it. And it does give players the chance, let's say that you've got a group of players and one guy wants to play Aberon and one guy wants to run Dragonlance and one guy wants to play in Greyhawk. And, in my 5th edition kind of adaptation for Spelljammer, somebody wants to be from Ravenloft. You could fight for weeks in a gaming group as to where are we setting our game. If you happen to all think that Spelljammer could be pretty cool, you could totally make a crew of all those things. You could basically make a place where you want to make a character, a Minotaur from the Pirate Isles in Krynn. Awesome, make a Minotaur. You want to be a Warforged from Eberron? Psh, rock and roll, do it. We hadn't really discussed it, but there could be maybe there's a Ravnica spear, a sphere within the phlogiston, and you could make a character from that world. It gives that same kind of freedom that like Palladium used with Rifts. Make a character from wherever you want. We'll find a way to make it fit. Spelljammer kind of has that sort of that shine to it. You want to make a Greyhawk fighter, a guy who's been fighting against the influence of Vecna forever, do it. And I think that's in and of itself, that's part of its charm, is you could have drastically different characters from drastically different places and spend the first 2 or 3 game sessions just getting to know each other and kind of realizing where you're from. I think it's a cool setup, and so I definitely count it amongst the classics. In fact, I'm running 3 Spelljammer events at GaryCon next month in March. One of which apparently is almost already is almost completely sold out. They haven't opened up the silver ticket badges yet. That comes on Saturday. Or silver badge tickets, but I've already got 3 or 4 out of my 5 in that group already signed up, so it should be fun. I look forward to hopefully getting some cool players and getting some people that are willing to stretch their mind in ways they might not be expecting it at the D&D table. And then the third thumbnail book is I recently recently found my collection of Chronopia books. So some of you people are going, what? So Chronopia was a lightly over skirmish fantasy game by Heartbreaker, I think was or Target, either Target or Heartbreaker was the first company that did it. And company's out of is no longer around, and Chronopia is no longer in production. But it was probably one of the coolest and most unique fantasy settings that I'd ever seen. They took a lot of your Tolkien-esque fantasy tropes and turned them on their ear. Humans were some of the best at magic, but their primary form of magic was Chrono Mansi, so the manipulation of time. There were a fanatical, kind of almost demon worshipping cult called the Devout. But where things really started to get weird is when you start getting into the non-human races. Dwarves were in these animalistic, like totemic druid clans almost. So if you were running a group full of the bear dwarf or bear clan dwarf, they probably had big metal claws and some kind of rage power. Or the bull clan, they all had charge bonuses and they wore these big metal helmets. It's just awesome. It's just a really cool concept of these sort of semi-savage dwarf clans, instead of what you always see is the ale swilling pistols everywhere, steampunk. It's not like that. They were like hardcore savage dwarves. And then probably the other facet of Chronopia that always made me go, man, that's cool. It's a cool concept. Is the Orc Empire. Orcs, ogres, and trolls are almost like Mongolian in feel. Very right around on horseback and monster back. Lightning raids. A very militant empire. That very might is right, but still a very interesting sense of honor, and not just mindless savages like some portray orcs in their world, and definitely not some kind of weird genetic takeover fungus like in GW games. Basically, Chronopia was just a really, really cool game, but even better, I think the game itself was fun, but even better was the setting. And I hope at some point, if whether or not I can have a hand in it, or whether or not somebody has a hand in it, I hope that they bring back Chronopia in some fashion, whether it's a role-playing game or a skirmish game or whatever, because it's too cool to be dormant for this long. It really is. So that's one of the ways that I talk about the classics, is classic games. This last weekend at my buddy's board game kind of get together, we played a game, well, most of a game of Shogun, the original Milton Bradley samurai takeover game. It's a tactical game. It's a long game. We only made it through 3 turns. Normal games run about 6. Before one of us had to go home, and we kind of called it at that. Which yours truly tied for first when we called it at 3. But it's a very interesting game. Very simple mechanics. Very simple strategy when it comes to what you're trying to do. Everybody's trying to do the same thing. That really was, when someone says, man, that's a classic. That one, when we got done playing with that, I remember going, there's a reason why this game has, like 2 new versions of it, and has been reprinted a couple times. Why it has stood the test of time, because it's a solid game, My grape stuff. But yeah, so like there's classic games all over the place as far as like the feel, but then even part of what my statement was for this topic was also, even within the game itself, make the classics work. And that means that maybe don't always try and break the mold. In your D&D game, or in your, if you're running a D&D game, and in your world, you're like, I hate the fact that goblins are always like the go-to bad guy. So you turn around, and in your world's narrative, goblins have civilized, and they're found everywhere. Similar to what we did with gobbers in Privateer Press back in the early 2000s, is we took something that, there are monster goblins out there, but for the most part, they're not just an enemy on sight. There's something that you see in cities. There's something that you see living, in the ghettos of larger towns. So you can do that, but if you don't, you shouldn't feel bad. You should figure out if you want goblins to be, in my D&D family, my family D&D game. Thus far, goblins have been the most prevalent thing that they've fought, that they've encountered, and that they've decided to be more than likely the primary enemy. Obviously, it's not. There's going to be a big switcheroo, but that is a very old standing, stereotypical D&D thing. Is goblins equal bad. Same thing with like kobolds equal bad, or you run into a group of orcs. Well, a group of orcs, you got to kill them, and you don't have to do it that way. You know, you could try and make your game into something that has different styles of these, you know, civilizations, of these communities. You know, you can kind of mess with the norm, or save your monkey wrenches for other kind of big plot points and things, and just use your orcs and goblins like orcs and goblins. You know, like they are what they are. They're a scourge on the countryside. Farmers hate them, and rangers hunt them. You know, or whatever. You know, but you know, there's something to be said for the strength of normality. You know, if I'm running I'm running a D&D game and someone sees a dragon, good or bad, whether it's a metallic, you know, yeah, if the character has some dragon knowledge and he goes, oh, metallic dragons, they're all good guys, you know, I'm probably going to uphold that. You know, that is a very classic D&D thing, is that you can tell roughly, you know, if they're on the chromatic spectrum, the Tiamat spectrum, you know, they're going to be evil dragons. If they're on the good guys, the metallic spectrum or the Bahamut spectrum, then they're going to be good dragons. And there is something to say for, don't necessarily trick your players all the time, every time, or they just won't ever believe you. Sometimes it's just cool to go by the book. You know, if they see that dragon fly overhead and you go, well, he could have been white or he could have been silver with like snow on him. What do you do? You know, like if they believe that dragon, well, if it's white, it's going to be evil. We're going to go into that cave and it's going to start knocking us around. But if it's a silver dragon, it could be good. We could get its help. How do we want to go handle this? And some of that rationale will be born out of the fact that as players and potentially as characters, they know what to expect when it comes to their dragons. And I think that it has its place to be weird and throw a curveball, but you also don't want your game to be nothing but curveballs. So you need to fall back on that solid sentiment that the core concepts that players, you know, and to a certain degree their characters will understand. This is how the world works. And if you're going to change what a classic is, if you're going to change what the norm is, make sure your players know that, because otherwise they might do something that they were sort of expecting this other thing to do, and then suddenly it doesn't do that, and you've caused a giant, you know, rules debacle at your table. I'm thirsty today. It's very dry in my house. But yeah, so I think when you're making a character, you could. I am known for, like, and this is you know, whether it's a strength or a weakness, I am known for making weird characters. Making in a Game of Thrones game, I made the Dothraki who came across the poison sea to serve as a bodyguard for somebody who died. In Vampire, I'm always one. It's like, Camarilla. I don't want to be a Camarilla clan. I would rather be a Lasombra. I would rather be something else. You know, I am that weirdo. In D&D, I'm always want to be like, all right, which race which race is on D&D Beyond that we haven't used yet? And some of that is just, you know, spice of life sort of thing. I want to do something new, something I haven't done 100 times before in the last 30 years of my gaming. And it really just kind of comes down to, I want to be entertained. I want to be excited. I want my character to be unique and cool, and I want people to remember him. But it doesn't mean that I shouldn't have room for that. You know, one of my best friends, with almost no exceptions, all he plays is halfling thieves or halfling rogues, and one day I looked at him and I was like, Dan, you've got to get tired of playing the same character again and again and again. You know, that's that same old halfling rogue every game. And he goes, it's not the same. It's the same profession and it's the same skill set because it's what I'm good at. but it's not the same character. And he makes the characters themselves different by their personalities, not their powers and their abilities. He really enjoys that skill set. He really enjoys that power set. So that, there he goes. And it's one of those things that, for in some cases, that's a challenge for me. Is if someone hands me, so let's say here, all right, little preview. Ooh, preview. So every time someone plays in one of my convention games, they get a character packet. And it's got a little picture of their dude on the front, so that way it's easy for me to hand out characters to people at the, or like say, hey, do you want to be this guy, this guy, this guy, this guy, this guy? And at a glance, they should be able to get a general concept. Look at the inside of the packet, look at the dude, understand what's going on. And most of the time, I try to make them. I don't want them to be super weird all the time. Sometimes they can be. Sometimes they can be, strange for the moment. If somebody really is into that, because I know if I sat down at someone's convention table and they handed out the gamer packets, if I see one that is on the weirder side or the more unique side or the kind of thing that I don't think I'd ever get a chance to play apart from that convention scenario, I'm probably going to try and grab it. But I also want to make sure that the stereotype roles are there too, because you never know. Someone's going to play... Maybe somebody who doesn't play a lot of D&D, bought in at that particular table, and sees, oh, cool, an elven wizard. They grab the elven wizard, and if it's not a traditional elven wizard, I might have a lot of explaining to do, depending on how much that player might know about what they're really getting hold of. But yeah, so here's like a sneak peek of the characters that I created for one of the GaryCon scenarios. I'm not going to say exactly which one, but we've got Cedric Prine, who is basically he's just sort of like a noble bodyguard, human. We've got Lady B Brassgirdle. She is a dwarven warlock that basically her connection to magic is what makes her smart. She's like a almost like a professor level of intelligence. We have the Jarl Vep Rysent, a winter elf for this game. He is technically a barbarian, but he is royalty in his clan. So I like the idea of hopefully whoever plays that character will have a little bit of a fish out of water feeling. What do you mean I have to pay for this food? I've been given everything my entire life. We have the Duchess Frida Rathanast. She is a gift, one of the giant hippopotamus people from Spelljammer. We have Zenth Astokton, which is a Githzerai monk, who is part of this game because he will bring a certain sort of enlightenment to the group. He'll know things that others might not. And then a true classic. This is a high elf paladin, a high knight. It is Dame Hallil Duskblade. Dame Hallil or Dame Duskblade is your stereotypical elven holy knight. She's a holy warrior. She believes in the elven gods. Hero to the core. And I think of all of those, aside from the human fighter and her, they are the closest thing to like baseline characters, the regular style of character classes. So when I go to run this event, we sit down, and if one of the players, I always like to ask, who wants to play what. I don't do it randomly unless I have to. If there's a player that sits down and goes, I haven't played all that much, but I like elves, I'll probably give him or her Lilil, because yeah, there might be some rule stuff that he might have to grasp. They might have to grasp, but when it comes to kind of the thought process of building the character, that will be easy. That's a classic stance, and I think anybody who's playing in a game like that, they will know as well. Like they'll be able to hear the hear the description of the character, hear one minor thing about them, and go, "Oh, okay, I see it," and then proceed with the rest of their session. I think that there is something to be said for massaging more out of the normal situations just as much as making a brand new one. There's a lot of homebrew rules out there for this race, that race. Here's my special volcano elves, or here are dwarves that mated with honey badgers, or whatever. And I think while it is very cool to have all these neat options, and there is a part of me that sees, when I see a cool set of rules, even if they might be a little overpowered or underpowered, there's that little part of me that's like, I should do that. I should bring that into my game. I should make that part of our experience, because that is awesome. That's a classic in the making. And I am then reminded that a classic in the making is normally somebody who's totally weird amongst actual classics. And I would hate to bring in an attempted, boy band moment, and instead, bring down the ire of the bad guy who set up the arrangement to begin with. It's just, there's so many different ways to find a good use for a character, and the more obtuse the character is, the more unique that character is, the harder it will be for a dungeon master to make it normal again. All right, well, let's take a look at the tips. We're talking about, I like to give some advice, and I've been ranting about using classics to make don't be afraid to make the classics work for you. But let's give some reasons, or not some reasons, some examples. I already mentioned the Goblins, but there's a lot of different classic-y type stuff out there that let's play you say you're playing in a Star Wars game, and your game master has already said no Jedi because he doesn't want to deal with the Force, and because it's often game breaking. And so, one guy makes a bounty hunter, one guy makes a Han Solo style smuggler, and you've got these crazy alien races all over the place, and you step out of the woodwork and go, I'm going to play a human merchant. And that might be an extremely cool, nuanced moment. You're going to get all kinds of great role playing out of it, and the game is going to see you, probably, unless your game master just avoids the political conflict. You're going to see your character evolve, kind of get pushed one way or the other. Do you go Empire? Do you go Rebel? Are you, or scale it back? Are you a separatist? Are you a flag waver for the Republic? You could see where your character goes by playing that very, very, very classic stereotype of, I'm a caravanning merchant. I'm not hiding anything. And I'm sure the other players are going to be like, what are you really? What are you, you're a Jedi hidden in plain sight. I know you are, or, this, that, or the other thing. You're a criminal on the run, and that's why you're laying low and just being a person. And you get into your first fight, and you're like, I barely know how to use a holdout blaster. Someone protect me. It could lead to some really, really fun role playing, and if the game goes on long enough, a cool evolution of character from turning from the 1 in 10 billion citizens. Oh, I'm a shopkeeper like everybody else, or I bartending at the cantina. Seeing that turn into something more could be very, very cool in a D&D game. It would be sometimes playing just the I'm an elf, I make an elf ranger. Nothing like, oh, I'm a bounty hunting man beast hunter ranger subclass with humanoid as my favorite enemy because I'm a bounty hunter. And or you make I'm an elven ranger, I dig the woods, I use a bow and a sword because I was trained in one of the many thousand elven families. There's a reason why stereotypes exist, and I'm it. Like that could be a lot of fun. I have always enjoyed when someone plays the a dwarven miner, a dwarven stonemason type person that is adventuring to pay off their debts or whatever, and you can see this guy totally out of his depth the first time like magic starts getting slung around or whatever, and he grabs his trusty pickaxe and is like, I'll take care of it, flap. Like these are some of the fun things that can happen if you are writing a stereotype. If you're choosing to play the classic, talking about Dan and his halfling rogue. Guess what, man? Everyone knows you're a halfling rogue, and if you don't want to be seen or turned in or anything like that, then maybe you are gonna try and do the Robin Hood style rogue. The steal from the rich, give to the poor. That's Robin Hood himself is a classic. You could totally play that character. And just because someone else has done it doesn't mean that it's no longer cool for you, or it's not a good thing. Well, so many other people have done it. Now, if it is a tired trope, if it's you're the good guy drow, the 1 in a million that we've seen 50 of, then yeah, maybe take a quick self-evaluation and go, all right, this is not what I should do, because I've read the novels. I know what happens when the good guy drow tries to become a hero. I know the hardships he goes through, and I don't want to. Maybe play. Find a race that's got like a nasty social downfall, and play it up that downfall as much as possible. So your fellow players are like just wowed that you've got such kind of role playing chops, or that it could be a cool challenge for you to find a way to overcome those not abnormalities, but those common character traits. It could be a lot of fun. It could be cool. And I think that you're playing. Let's change gears. Playing a classic investigator type gumshoe revolver and a flashlight and a Call of Cthulhu game could be a super blast. Not everybody has to be a secret cultist. Not everybody has to be the guy whose parents got eaten by a werewolf or a star vampire or whatever. Maybe you are just a gumshoe detective who took the wrong case at the wrong time, and now you know that there are old ones. Things. I know I've said you don't want to get stagnant. And you don't want to just keep using the same gags over and over and over again. But there's also something to be said for the poster children for particular things. We mentioned Call of Cthulhu, and that has always been, characters meet up with cultists secretly. The cultists try to kill them. There's always that kind of miasma of threat and fear in the background. That's the whole point of a fear horror role playing game like Call of Cthulhu. But without that, if every character played is like, oh, I'm a paramilitary specialist, here's my M16, this character is a research scientist that knows that aliens exist. Cool character concepts. I 100% agree. Is it not going to fit in with this kind of introductory moment that you have in your world for people to see for the first time? An actual alien landing on your other character's house. So if you don't, like, if you have a group full of people that specifically chose not to, chose to break the mold, and suddenly by game 2 you've got a group of players that have hijacked an alien ship or something stupid like that, there's all these different things that could get pulled up out of those classic role-play moments, or twisted depending on who gets a hold of them. But especially, I've heard people say before at conventions, and this is serious. People have said, "Well, I've never role played before. I don't really know how to be that character. Or I don't know how to role. I don't know how to run that character." There are iconic characters of every type in some kind of genre somewhere. So get out your Google fingers, and if you can't get your mind around the idea of why this particular thing exists, or why did that happen when this happened, then you again get on your little Google machine and start kind of narrowing things down. And it could be that it's just part of that old standing character concept, that character classic, that the jilted wife. Everybody knows that concept. We've all seen it in TV shows. We all seen it. Well, my husband ran off with somebody or other, and then later on they find out that he died, or he got abducted by aliens, or whatever. But that, in like 2 lines, in like 2 bits of communication, everybody at the table knows exactly this character's story, and it has probably a very good idea of at least what's on the outside of that story. Yeah, there's probably dark secrets, and they secretly worship a lobster god or something. But whatever the case may be, on the outside, they immediately will have enough to get started in a conversation, or an inquisition, or something along those lines, is just by understanding the concept behind the character, or knowing that they did these things and it caused it caused their their particular plot line to kind of quiver. You have there's a definite a certain strength in, if someone is playing, or if an NPC is portraying a classic role and a classic plot hook, don't view it as tired. Don't view it as, oh god, another one of these. Don't view it that way. View it as, okay, cool, I'm familiar with how this is going to go down. Now let's find out if it's going to change on me, because I already knew plan A, because plan A was based off of the classic template. Let's see what's going on with plan B. And that goes with characters as well as game masters. A character needs to be able to adapt to the situations. And if a game master reinvents every encounter and every monster, then your players will be completely in the dark, and that's unrealistic. Because they live here too. They've heard stories. Some have probably like seen pictures or drawings or art that will lean toward this overall storyline. And if you're a game master, or if you are a game master, or a dungeon master, or whatever, that chooses to buck the system and make changes, and I want my players on their toes. There are ways of keeping your players tense and excited and on their toes without throwing away all of this background and all of this stuff that someone created so you could possibly use it. Of course you can tweak it and change it as far as you need, but the more you tweak it and the more you change it, the farther it's going to get away from that classic concept, and the more explanation and the more inquisition your players are probably going to need to figure out what's going on, unless you just spoon feed it to them. But then that defies the whole purpose, because if you're just going to spoon feed the breakfast and direction getting moment, if you're just going to spread the word, then there's no reason to have all that extra stuff, because you can just have it basically part of their bumper assembly. You guys both got an incoming transmission, whoop, 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 and this is what it says. And if they choose to ignore that stuff, eventually it will come back to haunt them. And I think that's a big pro in the close association to being a classic. The closer you are to a classic, the more your personal morals and feelings kind of go in line with that of the product that you're creating that collective for. It should allow you a little bit of freedom when it comes to shopping, rather than trying to figure out every single thing that costs under this amount in that concept that they said, only to eventually have it turn off on you and lose all that information. You will be hopeful that your game master had what you were following up on to be one of those stereotypical classic moments, because without it, you are utterly lost. You can be lost but know a general direction, or you can be completely lost and be like, I don't know which way to go without screwing everything up. Or there is no way for me to walk down a path of understanding, because I don't understand any of it, because my game master has made things so weird and so off the norm that we have no chance of understanding as players. We have to wait to be told what's going on. And that, I think, is probably one of the number one reasons why, as a player, you should demand to have kind of the making of, if that makes sense, how you got there. Like there shouldn't be so many twists and turns that you are utterly convoluted and completely lost. There should be bullet points where you can go, okay, I get that. Okay, I get that. And maybe not something that you can just have out in the open. Maybe something you have to work for, do like skills towards, or whatever, depending on the game that you're working on, or the game that you're playing. So, all right, I'm seeing that we're getting close to the end of the time, and I've ranted quite a bit about how you can do weird stuff. I love doing weird stuff, but sometimes it is just as cool to have that stereotypical, plain Jane, normal character element, and just diving in head first and be like, I am a farmer. I love being a farmer. My farm got burnt down by goblins, and now I have picked up my daddy's crossbow and a pitchfork, and I am gonna go kill some goblins. That dude, that little short paragraph wrapped up so much for that particular character. Yeah, little things will pop up here and there, but generally speaking, everything is now, people know what this dude's about. Maybe not 100%, but 75, 80%. They know what's up. They know that he's anti-goblin. They burnt his farm down. He's looking for better ways to maybe turn himself into a warrior to fight goblins. He's looking to turn Stephen the farmhand into Stephen Goblinbane. Who knows? Honestly, the only people that do know are you, because you're the ones trying to put the story together. And I think that it is easier if you don't have everything be super weird, and occasionally just sort of let the classics, let the tropes roll out and have fun with them. Because honestly, they wouldn't be tropes and they wouldn't be classics for a reason if they didn't last as long as they have and stand up to, weeks, months, years, decades, generations of use. So there you got it. All right, so this weekend I'm running my family D&D game. I'm also hoping to get some miniatures games in, but we'll see how that goes. And next week, I don't know my topic for next week just yet. Honestly, it'd be kind of cool if you dropped it in the comment section. See if there's anything you want me to focus on or talk about. While I'm kind of running a little bit of a blank slate, waiting for my next order of Armor Class 10 t-shirts to arrive. Be kind of cool if you guys let me know what you'd like me to talk about next week. So from here in Ursa's Den studio, freelancing, go out there, have a good time, kill some goblins, be the hero, whatever you need to do, but have some fun and play some games. We'll see you next week.